Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and I have Anne-Marie here from 210 Analytics, and you've got a new report about some insights in e-commerce. And there's some fascinating numbers, like I'm just digging into it, and 200% increase in fresh foods immediately when the pandemic started. But the fascinating thing is that that number is not trailing off as more people are going into the store. What are some of the key things that you have found in your research that pertain to fresh produce?
First of all, thanks for having me. It's fun to be back. It's been a while, but I agree with you. So even though we might see the percentage growth start to dive down a little bit because now we're going up against those crazy months of 2020, we're certainly seeing the actual revenue in fresh stay very, very stable. So that's an important part. We also see online trips as a share of the total be fairly stable. So we see some people go back into the store, but for the most part, both delivery and click and collect are holding. And the growth is definitely a little bit in click and collect, and that has everything to do with the fact that a lot of the smaller retailers, independents around the country are starting to come online or came online in 2020. So they're starting to take some of that growth there as well. The beauty for produce was that there always was a big gap between food and non-food. That gap continues to exist. So one of the big findings was that about 10% of total food and beverage sales is now done online, but in non-food, that's 31%. So that is a huge gap that indicates to us that we might still see quite a bit of food and beverage growth in 2021. The other big gap always was between what we call the center store items, so frozen and dry goods in those middle aisles in the store versus fresh. A lot of people still went to the store to buy meat and produce. That gap also significantly closed. And of online shoppers, 85% now are also adding at least some produce items in the basket. So that then resulted in a giant jump of people who have bought fresh produce online in the past couple of months. In fact, we're now over half of the population that have done that. Doesn't mean they buy everything online. We continue to see that sort of evolution, starting with items where somebody else can grab a bag of salad just as easily as I can, versus say an avocado where people have a very specific ripeness sort of preference. So that tends to evolve over line and over time, and that basket tends to expand over time. But we're seeing less price sensitivity. So just a really good forecast for fresh produce to continue to grow their sales online.
And I'm also looking at a fantastic slide deck from one of the town halls that recently happened, and the comparison of online order versus produce picking your own in store and people's satisfaction. Honestly, 55% think it's the same quality as they would pick themselves. 19% said it was better. I mean, sure, 26% said it wasn't as good, but that's still 74% of people who thought it was just as good or better.
Yeah, and I think those are crucial stats because all my past research shows that you have to prove to them that you are as good or better, and you have to prove that to them 3 times before that new trust sort of level starts to develop. So it is extremely important that for every supply chain, the produce in the supply chain that goes into online, that quality is extremely consistent, even more so than in the store where a shopper themselves might pick around the items that don't look so hot, you know, that one box of strawberries that has the fuzzy one in there. So for online, you just have to deliver even better quality because that's what will drive the reorder.
And another slide I'm looking at, and one of the big concerns that retailers have, that especially fruit grower shippers have, is people are not as likely to be influenced by a beautiful display. And I see some slides that are suggestions of how to, I'll throw them up here so we can look at them, how to inspire a impulse purchase online. And there were a couple of different strategies. Sales still matter online, right?
Sales still matter online, even though that shopper is a little bit less price sensitive. Oftentimes, the sales might not be accepted online, or there's an increase if you order through like an Instacart, etc. But absolutely, sales do still draw eyes as well. But very importantly, I would say impulse is not as high online as it is in the store. And that's because a lot of people start with their past basket. Now, if you think about fruit, if you think about floral, those are highly impulsive items, and those are hard to measure online. So what IRI did is they looked at items like chocolate and energy drinks and those types of things. And they way under index in online baskets because we're not seeing them and we're starting with past favorites. And so having strategies where you basically have an online merchandising calendar for cherry season, for Mother's Day floral items, whatever it is, it's very important to think about seasonal items, about impulse items, and about new items. How are you going to draw eyes to that?
And, you know, some of the online sellers, I shop a lot online. I'm just like every other American out there, that you may also like. Suggestion is such valuable real estate, especially right now. And there are some retailers that do a better job of using that suggested product mix. And I see one really great display of, I believe that's Walmart. That looks like Walmart to me, of Cinco de Mayo favorites.
Yeah.
That looks just like what you would see in store.
Absolutely. And how easy is that to do if you think about it? And I was even talking to the candy guys. We were talking about all those fake national holidays that are out there, like National Watermelon Day. I'm inspired by your background. But what's to say as an online retailer that you couldn't pull together National Watermelon Day and have watermelon candies, watermelon gum, the real watermelons, etc., and really start blowing out these types of holidays? Or think about camping and bring in the s'mores displays and bring in all the fun fruits that people like to bring on camping trips. And so I think the whole idea of suggestive selling online has to be as creative, and that's how we can keep fruit sales and floral sales especially to the same levels as we are seeing in the in-store environment.
And when you think about it from a retailer's perspective, when someone's really going to blow it out and build a big in-store display, there's a huge amount of risk, especially when you talk about volume and shrink and all this stuff. When you put together a suggestive website, all it's really required is a project manager. You know? So
think about the labor too. I mean, everybody is struggling with labor right now. So instead of having to build a massive display, you, to your point, have a computer programming built your virtual display. So absolutely.
There's a lot of upsides to this. A fantastic report. You can check out Anne-Marie's report on producebluebook.com. And we will catch you again sometime later this summer. Maybe I'll change my theme to cherries.
There you go. I'll be inspired by that. Thanks for having me.